הרצל בז לכל מי שלא נחשב בעיניו מודרני, תרבותי, נאצל ונאור. בראש ובראשונה היו אלה אותם יהודים בני עמו שומרי תורה ומסורת. יסודות ורעיונות אנטישמיים כפי שבאים לידי ביטוי ביומנו ובמאמריו. הכמרים הנוצרים הם ברום המדרגה, מפני שאינם להוטים אחרי הכסף. הנוצרים הפשוטים טובים הם מכמרי היהודים. יחס זה חושף למעשה את הפן האנטישמי בתורת הרצל. הרצל מספק תימוכין ולגיטימציה לרדיפה האנטישמית ואף מעודד אותה. רעיון מצוין עולה בליבי, למשוך אנטישמים ישרים ולעשותם מחסלי הרחוב.
רעיון מצוין עולה בליבי למשוך אנטישמים ישרים ולעשותם מחסלי הרחוב היהודים. איך אתה יכול להגיד לך?
הייתי אומר לך שהרצל חוזה המדינה אמר את זה. לא.
אבל, אז הרצל היה אנטישמי. אבל, אז הרצל היה אנטישמי. אבל, אז הרצל היה אנטישמי. אבל, אז הרצל היה אנטישמי.
The Zionists in Germany, who represented the Zionists from Eastern Europe, went to the British War Cabinet, and I'm going to be brief because this is a long story, but I have all the documents to prove any statement that I make if anyone here is curious or doesn't believe what I is possible. The Zionists in London went to the British War Cabinet, and they said, look here, you can yet win this war. You don't have to give up. You don't have to accept a negotiated peace offered to you now by Germany. You can win this war if the United States will come in as your ally. The United States was not in the war at that time. We were fresh, we were young, we were rich, we were powerful. And they told England, we will guarantee to bring the United States into the war as your ally, to fight with you on your side, if you will promise us Palestine after you win the war. In other words, they made this deal. We will get the United States into this war as your ally. The price you must pay us is Palestine after you have won the war and defeated Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey.
But it wasn't just Swiss bankers who dealt with Hitler's Reich. While war raged, there were British and American bankers who continued to do business with the Nazis. The BIS channeled investments from the Allied powers into Germany for the expansion of her economy.
So, by 1816, some authors claim the Rothschilds had taken control over the Bank of England.
But a group of Zionists at the same time was quietly negotiating an agreement with the Nazis to allow the immigration of German Jews and the transfer of their assets to Palestine. That deal, reported in August 1933, was the transfer agreement. Palestine, sparsely settled by Jews at the time, was radically changed as a result.
revealing secret negotiation between the Nazis and the Zionists in 1933, which allowed German Jews and their assets to go to Palestine.
Well, with the rise of Adolf Hitler to power in the spring of 1933, the Jews of the world were faced with a dilemma. They could raise a cry of protest, a cry few would heed, or they could make a deal with Hitler, a deal that would bring a step closer to their dream of an independent Jewish state.
And perhaps the fourth and most prevalent myth has been that of Zionism as the moral legatee of the victims of the Holocaust. And what is particularly savage in the irony that surrounds this claim is the fact that the Zionist movement and the Zionist leaders itself were the active collaborators with the perpetrators of the Holocaust. They participated in the suppression of Jewish resistance, and they organized a consistent opposition to any escape on the part of European Jewry.
An outstanding example is that of Dr. Baruch Goldstein. Goldstein, a physician born and raised in the United States, was an Orthodox Jew. He immigrated to Israel and joined the Israeli army as a medical officer. In the army, he announced to his superiors that he would not treat wounded Gentiles. In 1985, after an Israeli soldier shot a Palestinian in the legs, the wounded Palestinian was brought to an army clinic where Goldstein was on duty. Goldstein refused to provide medical assistance to the Palestinian, and he issued a statement in which he said, and I quote, "I am not willing to treat any non-Jew." Goldstein's refusal to do anything to save the life of a Gentile was not just a personal quirk. It was based on an injunction in the Talmud, and Jewish religious authorities prevented the army from punishing Goldstein for his disobedience to orders. Despite his refusal to provide medical assistance to Gentiles, Goldstein was permitted to remain in the army as a medical officer with the rank of captain. On February 25, 1994, the day of the Jews' annual Purim festival, when each year they celebrate a massacre of 75,000 Persians, which they organized more than 2,500 years ago, Captain Goldstein entered a mosque in Hebron and murdered 29 Muslims who were kneeling in prayer, shooting them in the back with his army assault rifle. While he was reloading his assault rifle, surviving worshipers beat him to death.
Just tell me what we did.
The Israeli government was not able to keep the massacre hushed up. Immediately after the massacre, one very prominent Orthodox leader, Rabbi Moshe Levinger, told a writer for Israel's largest newspaper that he was sorry for the 29 Palestinians murdered by Goldstein in the same way that he would be sorry for the killing of 29 flies. Another prominent Israeli religious leader, Rabbi Dov Lior, announced, and I quote, "Since Goldstein did what he did in God's own name, he is to be regarded as a righteous man." There was a huge funeral procession for Goldstein, and the Israeli army provided a guard of honor at his grave. One of the eulogists, Rabbi Israel Ariel, said, and I quote, the holy martyr Baruch Goldstein, is from now on our intercessor in heaven. Goldstein did not act as an individual. He heard the cry of the land of Israel, which is being stolen from us day after day by the Muslims. He acted to relieve that cry of the land. A year after the massacre, the Israeli government issued a permit to Goldstein's admirers to build a large monument at the site of his grave. Today, Goldstein's grave is one of the most popular sites in Israel for religious Jewish tourists, especially those from the United States.
Do you consider Dr. Goldstein a martyr, a hero?
Yes. Yes.
You consider him a hero?
I most certainly do.
I was proud to know him, and I think he's one of the finest people I'd ever met.
There's no question about it, he was a great man. There's no question about it.
The most upsetting part of this whole thing isn't that the Arabs were killed. It was that Dr. Baruch Goldstein was killed.
He did a tremendous deed, an act of self-sacrifice, and to try to save the Jewish people. They deserved it, and they got what they deserved.
Jews habitually deceive Gentiles by having a different meaning in mind for the words they use than the meaning understood by Gentiles. When Orthodox Jewish writers use the term human beings, for example, they are referring only to Jews, because the Talmud specifies that only Jews are human beings, while Gentiles, not having souls, are non-human animals. But the average Gentile doesn't realize this, and when he hears someone like Lieberman speaking of his compassion for his fellow human beings, he is fooled into believing that Lieberman is a man who has compassion for Gentiles as well as for Jews. The Jews, in order to exercise their influence, must move among us and be regarded as similar to us. Have you heard any media commentary in the United States about the Goldstein massacre? Compare this total lack of coverage with the famous Kristallnacht of November 1938 in Germany. After a Jew murdered a German official at the German embassy in Paris, Germans went on a rampage of retribution, smashing the windows of Jewish shops in Berlin and setting fire to synagogues. A total of 36 Jews were killed in the disorders, a figure not too different from the number of Palestinians slaughtered by Goldstein. Kristallnacht was 62 years ago, and yet every American school child still hears about it every
شباب احنا بدنا كان لو فلوس جماعة الخير. سيب الكاتب انا
شافوا الدكتور؟
national d'Israël chanté par des députés de la République, l'image est assez rare. De droite comme de gauche, des parlementaires, des amis d'Israël, pour dire non à la reconnaissance unilatérale d'un État palestinien par Mahmoud Abbas à l'ONU. Mesures de sécurité renforcées, plusieurs centaines de militants pro-État hébreu affluent en fin d'après-midi. Il faut montrer patte blanche. Rien ne doit perturber le meeting de soutien à Israël des parlementaires français.
Par ma femme, je suis lié de manière éternelle à la communauté juive et à Israël, quand même. La responsabilité du politique, c'est de ne pas tenir compte des provocations. Oui, les Juifs de France, comme le fait aujourd'hui le ministre de l'Intérieur, peuvent porter avec fierté leur kippa.